Hey, y'all. Welcome to Cornbread and Roses. I'm your friendly neighborhood organizer, Austin, and I'm here tonight with Red Mike.
Hello, comrades.
And we are one of the only socialist podcasts in Alabama and the most unprofessional podcast in the land, maybe the world, definitely the known universe. You figure those sentences out yourself, folks. And yeah, going to hit some memes and media. This week in Socialist History. I hope you got something because I'm just repeating the stuff from last year's calendar on the new calendar.
I don't have anything. Well, hopefully.
Well,
My
that's all
calendar
right.
hasn't come in from Jacobin yet.
Yeah,
what's going on?
I'm a parent, so I'm used to having to repeat myself. So I guess we'll just do some of that. A conspiracy theory from Miss Candance Owens. So that'll be interesting.
I previewed it. It's a doozy.
Oh boy, I actually watched it on double speed because I hate myself. But no, it interesting. Let's just call it interesting for now. And yeah, there's a lot going on this past week. What's been up with you, dog?
Oh, well, mostly just trying to stay on top of the news and figure out what my response to it should be. So there's a lot of news out of Minneapolis that I've been following. There's news out of Rojava, which you've been following as an interesting experiment in alternative government that is in a lot of danger right now. And then there's the closer to home is the legislative session for the Alabama Legislature and the State of the State speech by Kay Ivey, and yeah, a few other things.
Yeah, we got folks in the state qualifying for office. Yours truly might be one of them. People in the Democratic Party running for the executive committee. That's like 100 something folks that have office for 4 years and manage that the party. It looks like there might be some fresh blood in there. We had our DSA chapter general meeting this past Saturday. It was great. It's always great to be in these meetings. You know, meetings. This body is a machine that turns meetings into revolution, folks. And we had our coffee social. It was like 20 something folks on Saturday. Also had our monthly DSA social on Friday, and there's been various. We mentioned this last week. Various protest rallies, etc. And there's more coming up. There's the 20 at 2 on the 20th, where you take 20 minutes or maybe walk out for the rest of the day for women and in support of them. There's up in Minneapolis and in Minnesota in general, it looks like the whole state is going to go on strike on the 23rd, including schools, and they're going to boycott everything. And there's some folks in various other places, maybe even here, that are going to try to stand in solidarity with them. There's the Bridge Brigade on the 22nd. There's also the Huntsville City Council meeting where there'll be an ice out event, and there might be something on the 31st that Indivisible gets together additionally against ICE. But meanwhile, we got all these Democrats and Republicans up in Washington, D.C. that just funded an appropriations bill, and we'll get to that a little bit. But first, let's see here. Why don't we try to get a few laughs in before we get into the other stuff? Hey, folks, spread information, not panic. Salute. Straight from the Army, folks. Size, strength, actions, activity, location, direction, uniform, close or unit, time and date of observation, equipment and weapons, salute, SALUTE. So remember that, folks. Whenever you see something, say something, and that's what that's what you do, right? A little PSA to start with. Yeah. So when do Democrats start fighting to improve material conditions and go to war against fascism, hypersurveillance, oligarchy, ecocide, and genocide? That's the neat part. We don't. And,
Yep.
you know, uh, being called un-American, being called a cop-hating anarchist, being called a dirty commie, being called a liberal.
Yep. Not liberals. Anything but a liberal.
Almost anything. Let me see your papers, please. Papier, bitte. Yeah? Okay, cool. Now, how about those Epstein files? Shout out to that guy at that Ford plant who think he's got about 10 years worth of salary now. And the UAW,
Thanks to GoFundMe.
Yeah, and UAW came out in support of him as well. So that's pretty nice to hear. Oh, Boots Riley. He's a very talented man. If police are supposed to actually want to fight crime, then they would go to the source of the crime. This would be the ruling class. This would be the billionaires who cause the low wages and poverty and crime that is necessitated by their action. That's right, Mr. Riley.
I saw the coup in concert once.
Oh my goodness, I'm jealous.
Yeah, it was super cool. It was his father was awarded an award by the ACLU when I was living in California in San Francisco, and a few of my friends at the time were working at the ACLU, and so I got to be their plus one. And at the gala that was honoring his father, Boots Riley's father, the coup performed. So that was super cool. I got to go to a free coup concert.
Well, cuckoo choo to you.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah.
It was quite cool.
If you don't know the coup, he also makes movies, folks. He makes some good.
Oh yeah.
Movies. So, like I said, a talented man. A woman's place is in the resistance. That's right, Miss Leia. Did she ever yeah, she got a new title, general. She was a general. Got rid of that princess shit. Right. We do not need a quote properly trained Gestapo. Abolish ICE. Yeah, you're hearing that in the news, folks. Mutual aid means discovering what we can learn from each other, sharing what we can do for each other, and exploring what we owe to each other. That's right. Be in service to each other, folks. American people, we need you to help us fight fascism, the Democratic Party. Best we can do is nothing.
Yep. Fetterman, what a disappointment.
Yeah. He, like I said, he gave a bad name to hoodies.
Yep.
I don't know if you saw Chuck Schumer here walking the halls and asked by reporters about ICE and said, well, I have some problems with ICE. Oh, is that all? Okay.
Thanks, Chuck.
Hey, sorry I missed your message. I am processing a nonstop 24/7 onslaught of information with a brain designed to eat berries in a cave. God, wait, is that AI? Shit. Oh, no. All right, well, I'll excuse myself on that one. There's no such thing as a perfect name for a firefighter. Lieutenant Les McBurney, Sun Prairie Fire Department. Shout out firefighters. The kids even laughed at that one. All right. Never ask a woman her age. A man his salary. Literally any U.S. politician why they don't discuss that Israel has nukes. Never look up Mordecai Vanunu, Symington Amendment, or Leahy laws. I don't know. You heard about that earthquake out in Israel? Apparently, there was an earthquake detected, but some are speculating that it was an underground nuclear test. Huh. Hey, the greatest illusion of modern society is that freedom is purely individualistic, when in reality, our freedom is deeply interconnected with the well being of everyone. And last but not least, no amount of esoteric wisdom will change the material conditions for you, bruh. And we are off and running.
There you go.
Socialist history. Let's do that. I got my new. I got my new Democratic Socialist America 2026 calendar, and I was hoping that that we were going to have some new events in here, but that was not the case. And well, I'm a parent if you haven't figured that out yet, and I'm used to repeating myself, so I'm gonna repeat myself a little bit on this. Today's the 18th. We're going to go back on the 12th that James Farmer, American civil rights leader, was born 1920. On the 13th, unemployed New Yorkers riot in Tompkins Square Park in response to economic crisis. That's 1874. On the 14th, demonstrations in Tunisia bring down the president, ushering in the Arab Spring 2011. Can you believe it was that long ago? The 15th, Martin Luther King, civil rights leader, pastor, and democratic socialist, was born in 1929. My kids were talking about MLK this past week, so it was good to hear them talk about him. On the 16th, Spanish socialists, communists, and anarchists form Unidad Popular, 1936, fighting the fascists, fighting Franco in Spain. And on the 17th, Ralph Chaplin completes labor hymn Solidarity Forever during IWW protest led by Lucy Parsons in Chicago in 1915. And on the 18th, the Lumbee Indians defeat local KKK during Battle of Hayes Pond in Maxton, North Carolina in 1958. All right. And that's a little socialist history for y'all, folks. Are we ready for the conspiracy?
Lay it on us. This is a complicated one, but it's also very wild.
So yeah. So as you can see, I actually watched this, and man, there's a lot to it. Oh, see, Project Looking Glass. How did Charlie know he was going to die? But to kind of just, and man, I tell you what, whew, she's off in Alex Jones territory and stuff, like for real. Which good for her, I guess. But the TLDR of this was that Charlie Kirk was a time traveler of sorts and was able to astral project his soul into the past and future. This writer, this Redditor here, said kind of like Bran Stark. If you know the Game of Thrones stuff, I'm still waiting on that next book. Also, when his parents learned of his gifts, they sent him to a X-Men type school. And that's a Candace Owen verbatim quote. 3, his soul is currently in purgatory. God wants to keep him there for a bit before bringing him to heaven because he turned towards Catholicism relatively late in his life. All right. He appears to Candance in her dreams to tell her what's what. And 5, some ancient Mesopotamian demon is responsible for killing Charlie. And he's suggestion Pazuzu. So yeah, as they say, this is the state of the American conservative movement as of today. And there's some more tidbits in there. So if you want to laugh, go check out Miss Owens. You'll get some for sure.
I couldn't bring myself to watch the video. I read the TLDR.
Yeah, there's some other little tidbits in there, and she like she said, she mentions Looking Glass, and but it's like, oh, but the project like couldn't see past 2012, and played some video on that, and like she kicked off with the Mandela effect. Like she's like, there was a cornucopia in the Fruit of Looms. You can't convince me otherwise. In the Fruit of Looms logo, it's like, all right, okay. So, woo, it's a doozy with these folks, but hey, it is entertaining, and I don't know about you, but I like a good conspiracy. But as a reminder, there's only one conspiracy, and it's the rich are out to get you. That's it, folks. The conspiracy, the one that rules them all. So, Herr Director, what would we like to get to on the news front?
Well, I figured I would start with the death of Claudette Colvin. So we unfortunately lost a civil rights hero last week. So Claudette Colvin, who refused to give up her seat on the Montgomery bus 9 months before Rosa Parks did, died at the age of 86 on January the 13th. So she is less widely known than Parks, but she played a pivotal role in dismantling segregated public transit in the United States. And she was only 15 when she did this. So when she was 15 years old, on March the 2nd, 1955, she refused to give up her seat to a white passenger on a Montgomery bus, which led to her arrest, predating Rosa Parks's refusal by 9 months.
Yeah, she had some. I swear I read she had some buddies with her that day as well. I'm not quite sure if they got arrested or not, but can you imagine being 15? Like we mentioned stuff over the shows past. Like I think a couple months ago we mentioned a 12-year-old up in New York who started a tenant strike. Look at all the newsies back up in New York in the 1800s who went on strike and won. Some 12 years old as well, but amazing to be. Well, I mean, what were you doing at 15? I damn sure wasn't doing this.
Yeah, I wasn't doing political work yet. It would still be another 5 years before I got involved in politics. I was paying attention, but I wasn't active, and I have no excuse.
Oh, bullshit. I mean, be honest, if the world was the way it should be, she wouldn't have done this stuff in the first place. But it wasn't just her. So she, got arrested, and there were a couple of other arrests as well prior to Rosa Parks coming in, right?
Right.
Yeah, and it says Miss Parks, who was a local NAACP activist, on December 1st, 55, became the final catalyst. So, thinking about Miss Claudette here. Yeah, Colvin was one of four plaintiffs. Uh, Ended up on the lawsuit, but
It was Browder versus Gale. The Supreme Court heard it and struck down segregated buses in Montgomery and everywhere.
which took 18 months with a whole lot of coordination and supporting each other, mutual aid, thousands. I think it cost over $100,000. Babysitters set up, ride shares, all kinds of coordination and logistics to get that boycott done. But the thing I want to kind of highlight here is that prior to Miss Parks doing her thing, there was multiple kind of events and lead ups. And if you look like what's happening now over the past year plus, well, almost a year now, we're seeing those things too. And we're seeing, and I mentioned what's about to go down up in Minnesota. So we're seeing the same sort of things happening, like a slow kind of build up, people figuring out what to do, et cetera, et cetera. And then suddenly a floodgate opens. So on the 23rd, we might see the floodgate open on how people think about strikes, strike power, and boycotting in this country. Fingers crossed. Let's hope so.
The resistance in Minneapolis is working, and the feds are scrambling to do what they can to defeat it, but they're not winning. And it's been heartwarming to see. Like, resistance is not futile. We can get in the streets. We can make things happen. And I think it was we highlighted a quote from Big Bill Haywood last week that said the workers, along the lines of the workers can just put their hands in their pockets and defeat anybody. Like our ability to withhold our labor is our superpower.
That's
In
right.
addition to everything else that we're doing.
But I'm going to read this quote here from the Montgomery Mayor, Stephen Reed, that Colvin's action helped lay the legal and moral foundation for the movement that would change America. Colvin was never as well known as Parks, and Reed said her bravery was too often overlooked. Claudette Colvin's life reminds us that movements are built not only by those whose names are most familiar, but by those whose courage comes early, quietly, and at great personal cost, Reed said. Her legacy challenges us to tell the full truth of our history and to honor every voice that helped bend the arc towards justice. Yeah. And a final little note is that she lost her ability to vote. And it wasn't until 2021 that she was able to have her record expunged and finally vote. And she says here, when I think about why I'm seeking to have my name cleared by the state, it is because I believe if that happened, it would show the generation growing up now that progress is possible and things do get better, Colvin said at the time. It will inspire them to make the world better. So rest in power, Miss Claudette. Yes, sir. So what else are we looking at today?
So I guess it's worth starting with the State of the State speech that Governor Ivey gave. It was mostly a big nothing burger. It was her last State of the State speech before she is term limited out, and because of her age, she won't be able to run for governor in the future. She's unlikely to be able to run for governor in the future, especially after Tommy Tuberville gets his 8 years. So let me pull up the article here. So it was largely it didn't contain a lot of the culture war stuff that her previous State of the State speeches have included. She mostly highlighted her record on bringing, luring corporations to open up businesses here in Alabama and create jobs, which I have a fundamental problem with that strategy. I think that these corporations get way too much in tax incentives and other considerations, and they have no loyalty to the state. They shut down the businesses they start. They move them as soon as they get a better offer elsewhere. They don't hold up their end of the bargain in very many cases. I'm thinking specifically about the Remington plant that was opened here in Huntsville.
Yeah, what happened with
So,
the plant?
well, they shut down the plant.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I have a problem with that. And what she's called for in this term is a 2% raise for teachers and state employees, increasing school choice funding to $250 million, which is, I mean, robbing our school
Yeah.
funding in order to give them to private schools, improving the state's labor participation rate, and supporting rural health care.
So yeah, the school choice funding last year it started at 100 billion. It cost 180 million, and now it's at $250 million, taken from public schools.
Outrageous.
Yeah.
So nothing too big. She did endorse the expansion to the death penalty to include certain SA cases, and also this crime of if you kill someone while in the course of putting multiple people at risk, which I guess means mass shooting events. So
Yeah, she mentioned that quite a bit in this speech. So she can't wait to sign it on her desk and stuff.
right.
Once again, folks, abolish the death penalty.
And she called for more cops in Montgomery. I mean, it was largely a lot of nothing. I guess her the time for like it is an election year, so the legislature is trying to get out of there as quickly as possible after passing the budget so they can get back to campaigning and fundraising. So already like that would be a bad year to try to get an ambitious program done. And I guess she feels like she's accomplished all she's going to accomplish as governor, and it's just sort of waiting the time out. So it's kind of a nothing burger state of the state speech.
There's supposed to be 200 million coming in for rural health care, 203 million. There's a 61-page plan laid out. Made it about a third of the way through it. It seems like maybe there's, if it seems like it's possible that they do improve rural health care, but we shall see. There's things in there about getting more folks educated and trained and stuff. There's something about a telerobotic ultrasound system for expecting mothers. There's a lot of stats at the beginning of that read as well. And none of them are too good to read. In rural places, an expectant mother is over 30 minutes away from any place that can help with the birth. I mentioned last week about the midwife businesses not being able to operate anymore. But I thought this was funny, that they want to do a statewide flood notification system. Don't we already have that? Like, I swear, I get flood notifications. What's going on with that? This I also thought was interesting. $50 million for K through 12 safety efforts. I would like to know some of the specifics of some of that, but as of yet, they're not quite laid out. But there was like this fella up here. Where is he? I think he started up around Huntsville, I think, but Rodney Smith goes around getting grass cut for older folks, and has gotten that done across all 50 states now, with kids helping and stuff like that. And I think that's great. This is an example of mutual aid. You know, be nice if maybe the cities didn't try to penalize older folks who can't get their grass cut on time. But hey, somebody's out there helping. So hey, shout out to Rodney Smith. Yeah, that's Mee Maw's. That's her final speech.
Final state of the state speech.
Yeah,
it probably won't be her final speech, but it is her final state of the state speech. So, and she ended up with a shout out to all the people she worked with, the Speaker of the House, the Lieutenant Governor, and among others.
yeah.
There was a Democratic response.
Oh,
and focusing on, so the Alabama House Democratic Caucus issued a response to Governor Kay Ivey's final State of the State address, and they're focused on affordability, which has been proven to be a winning issue for Democrats everywhere. So it was delivered by Representative Adeline Clark from Mobile, who said the state of the state is unaffordable. So,
and who exactly has been in charge in the past, I don't know, a lot of years?
well, the Republicans took over the state legislature in 2010. And I often tell people, like, this is one of the most conservative states in the union. If conservative economics really did produce general prosperity, this should be the richest state in the union. But instead, the richest states are the most liberal states, like California or New York. Now, I know they have higher population, but even when you compare per capita economic data, like, they're doing better than we are.
Yeah, I think rural folks are. So it says somewhere around 45,000 a year, which I don't know about that. I think a lot of these statistics, I'm very curious how they do their counting, but that's what they say. And there's been newer studies that say if you're making under 150,000 a year, you're basically up the creek without a paddle.
Yeah.
And in urban areas, it's a little bit more. It's something like 54,000. I know a few people that make more than that, but most people I know do not make $45,000 a year. But yeah, to your point, if what else did Democrats say?
Well, mostly they highlighted their opposition to the Choose Act, saying that it guts.
It up with 18 seconds left.
Yeah, that money's coming out of the public school system,
right?
To rich folks. It's been shown that about 3% of lower income folks can take advantage of these programs, of these voucher programs. And you've seen them pushed all across the country.
So Clark says that the Alabama Democratic House Caucus will be focused on investing in public education, expanding access to affordable health care, and protecting voting rights during the 2026 legislative session. But in fairness, with Republican supermajorities, they're probably not going to be able to accomplish very much. Like, their role is purely negative, stopping bad bills. They probably don't have the juice to pass any positive bills.
No, and if you want to keep up with these sessions, you can check out the Alabama channel. They do all of the committees and in the Senate and the House live. I did actually get to see them pass, from Miss Claudette, pass a resolution in support of her. It passed unanimously. But it's kind of funny, how because those same folks back when she was young probably wouldn't have passed that, but as time goes, they try to co-opt the heroes of movements and stuff like that, show that, oh, we're on their side and whatnot. Which, hey, all right, put on your kente cloth and take a knee, I guess.
Right. So that brings me to the Alabama Legislature for January the 13th to the 15th. So we'll see what passed. And most of the bills that passed were pretty boring. There was one good bill, HB 50, sponsored by Representative Terry Collins out of Decatur, which provides permanent state funding for Dolly Parton's Imagination Library. The bill passed 101 to 0. It goes to the Senate.
Yeah, I love me some Dolly Parton, and hey, I'm down with more library stuff, but it is pretty. I'm curious about the details of this when we look at all the stuff that's happening with our library systems and I guess it's the queer scare right now. Not the red scare.
The lavender scare, I think they call it.
Oh, there we go. Lavender scare. Thank you. I thought there was a term out there. That's the one that, yeah.
So there was an original lavender scare in the 50s, of course, and now, like, we tend to use red scare and green scare and lavender scare for contemporary issues as well. But the rhetoric about trans people has become quite genocidal. Yep. And the level of dehumanization and just and we'll talk about that here in a moment when we talk about the Don't Say Gay bill, which is probably the worst bill coming down the pipe so far. So a lot of the bills were pretty boring. The Dolly Parton one was probably the most exciting one. I mean, there's like the one to change the name of the Alabama Math and Science Teacher Education Program to something else. So, like, not very exciting. And most of the bills were along that got passed this past week were along those lines. There's one bill that requires health insurance companies to cover prostate cancer screenings for all high-risk patients. I mean, that's not bad, I don't suppose.
I guess all these older gentlemen in office are been talking to their doctor. You know what I mean?
One bill that kind of concerns me a little bit is SB 114, sponsored by Senator Lance Bell from Pell City, allows Alabama law enforcement to arrest persons of interest without a warrant if they have a felony charge in another state. So they don't have to wait to get a warrant. They can arrest you if they determine you have felony charges in another state. So it passed 35 to 0, meaning no Democrats voted against it. I don't like this picking people up without warrants.
Yeah.
Aside from that,
it also seems kind of unnecessary. Like, if somebody's already a person of interest, I'm just curious where the rationale and whatnot, where this stems from. You know what I
How
mean?
hard is it to get a warrant? Yeah, exactly. So nothing terribly exciting out of the state legislature this week, which is good news. There is, of course, one bill that I'm going to be focusing on trying to get killed is the Don't Say Gay bill. So this is Mac Butler, who Robert Hunter is running against. His bill, HB 23, bans LGBT classroom discussion and flags from pre-kindergarten to 12th grade. So it would expand the currently existing Don't Say Gay bill to all the way to 12th grade instead of, I think it's to 8th grade now. And it would specifically ban pride flags. So Altrac is organizing against this bill. So if you're going to contact your state legislature about any particular issue, I would recommend if you could only call them about one issue, I would call them about HB 23 and ask them not to pass the Don't Say Gay bill.
And actually today on the Alabama Progress server, there was a little get together, Sips and Scripts, where folks were working on messaging on these bills and contacting their representatives and stuff. So shout out Alabama Progress, folks. I'm on there. It's a lively community with a lot of good folks on there trying to do good work. So
yeah, the Alabama Progress Discord, it's definitely worth being part of. So HB 23, Mac Butler's bill, Don't Say Gay. We can't change their minds, but we can change their priorities, especially in the year when they're eager to pass the budgets, which is the only thing they're really required to do. They have to pass 2 budgets and then get back on the road campaigning and fundraising. So they don't really have a lot of fire in their bellies to pass a lot in this particular session. And if any particular bill encounters a lot of resistance, there's a good chance that we can get them to delay it. And Altrac has a great track record. I know I brag on them all the time. They have a great track record of killing bad bills using just the plain old method of contacting your state legislator. So I wouldn't sleep on that. It doesn't sound like much, but you can get things done this way.
yeah, they're organization. They don't have bylaws, folks. Imagine that. Imagine operating as an organization without bylaws.
Yeah,
But they get it done. So shout out to them as always. And I believe one of their folks is actually running for office, Miss Allison Montgomery. Montgomery.
nice.
Yeah. Montgomery as a last name. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And she actually spoke at the legislative session as well that took place a couple weeks ago in Huntsville. So I can't remember what district, and I'm pretty sure it's House, but I was at I think I mentioned this already, that I was at the Madison County Democratic Party meeting, and well, a lot going on that night, a lot going on. But I think next week, maybe let's take a look at all the Democrats that are running for office, because it's might not be a full ballot, but I tell you, folks, there are a lot of working class new folks out there that are running for office. So we should probably take a look at that next week.
That's a good idea, and try to get someone on the show if we can. If they'll deign to come on our show.
Yeah.
to our dozen a fan.
Oh yeah. So that is what passed this past week. Fundraising for candidates start back on the 20th. When they're in session, you can't fundraise. That's one reason why they're trying to be fast. So yeah. What else we got on the docket?
So speaking of the budget, And we've mentioned this issue in the past, but there is a shortfall to the SNAP benefits because as a result of the one big beautiful bill. So they're shifting SNAP benefits, or they're shifting SNAP administrative costs to the states. So Alabama has to come up with about $39 million. But they're saying that the state could also face up to $200 million in additional expenses tied to payment error rates. So there are about 750,000 state residents that rely on the program. That's about 15% of the state population. And if the legislature doesn't cover this $39 million shortfall, in addition to the possible $200 million shortfall, you're talking about people going without food.
Well, it sounds like if we didn't have that school voucher program, this wouldn't be a problem.
Right. So starting October the 1st, states will have to pay 3/4 of the cost to run the program. And starting in late 2027, some states that make errors in more than 6% of the payments, often for paying a household more than it's supposed to get after its income rises, will have to start paying some of the costs of benefits. So that is a big storm on the way for state budgets. Almost every state is going to be affected, and I have little faith in the Alabama legislature that they'll want to defend the SNAP program. Tommy Tuberville has already said that it's a target, that SNAP is a target for him because he wants to root out fraud in our state. So if he's elected governor, he will he'll put SNAP in the crosshairs.
Yeah, the fraud rate on if we really want to talk about fraud, we should talk about rich folks. But for this subject, like the quote fraud rate for like so many government programs is somewhere around 3% typically. So, which, okay, that's not nothing. I ain't gonna say that, but it's not 30%, which is what their rhetoric makes things sound like, right?
Right.
And yeah.
So $200 million represents more than a 5% increase to the state's $3.9 billion general fund. And so this issue is going to be part of the budget talks. So the state house on Wednesday began budget talks. They have to pass two budgets, the general budget and the education budget, in order to get out of there. Like those are the two things they are required to do. And that is a huge storm heading our way. We have to make sure that the state doesn't drop SNAP benefits. So that's another issue worth contacting your state legislature about and telling them that, hey, 750,000 Alabamians are dependent on SNAP benefits. And it's not, contrary to what Katie Britt says, they don't magically become self-sufficient when you take away what's helping them survive.
And it's always these millionaires, right? And billionaires talking about fraud, waste, and abuse and whatnot.
Right. Even though the amount of money we give to businesses in subsidies dwarfs what we spend on the poor and the most marginalized in our society. Like corporate welfare is massive compared to what we think of as welfare. And in a sense, like a lot of the personal welfare that's not corporate welfare winds up benefiting corporations anyway. So the SNAP benefits, like if they're eliminated, it will have a deleterious effect on rural and I guess non-rural also shopping, grocery stores, even Walmart and other places that do brisk business in EBT. So Walmart pays its employees so little that they actually have found it cheaper to provide training in how to go on state benefits. So they will actually train their employees how to receive welfare so they can continue to justify poverty wages.
Yeah, it's something like each Walmart store is subsidized in the neighborhood of $1 million plus, depending on the store. So pretty amazing. And there's how many Walmarts are there in the United States?
Oh, uncountably many. Let's see. Wonder what the internet says. How many Walmarts in USA? There are approximately 4,612 Walmart stores in the United States. Texas has the highest number of locations with 509 stores.
What's that? Let's say 4,000 times 1 million. That's an easy.
That's 4.1 billion.
There we go. And or they could just, pay their people. But they don't. And that's why they need a union.
Yep. So there's a SNAP crisis brewing in Alabama. So that's something worth paying attention to as we move along. So those I think are going to be the two big issues: killing the Don't Say Gay bill and making sure that SNAP benefits that we don't drop the ball there. I can't talk today. I don't know what's going on, but I can't seem to get the sentence out of my mouth.
And it's been a long week. They're all long, but maybe this one was a little longer.
I am reminded of Lenin's quote about there are weeks when decades happen.
Yeah. Yes, sir. But I think we got one other thing to talk about. Looks like we're gonna be fast tonight. Let's see here. There was a bill supported by a whole lot of Democrats, including the two Democrats here in Alabama, and of course all the Republicans here in Alabama. But the Alabama congressional Democrats vote yes on legislation funding Trump's agenda.
So this is disappointing from Terry Sewell and Shamari Figures, who voted in favor of legislation that Republicans say will help advance President Donald Trump's America First agenda. So it was the bill H.R. 7006 passed the House of Representatives on a 341 to 79 vote on Wednesday. So the legislation goes to the Senate. It provides funding for the first two fiscal 2026 appropriation bills, including the Financial Services and General Government Appropriations Act. Includes appropriations for several federal departments and agencies related to financial services. I mean, honestly, I would have voted no. There's stuff in there about eliminating quote unquote woke, DEI, climate change, and other policies enacted under Joe Biden's tenure. Enacting anti-abortion measures, funding Trump's Make America Safe Again agenda. I don't even know what that is. $17.5 million for the first federally funded school voucher program in the United States. Yeah. Providing $6.2 billion in foreign assistance to Israel, Taiwan, and Egypt. Why Egypt? I mean,
we've been supporting them for a while, a big while there. I mean, if you remember, like Egypt actually warned Israel, which I think they already knew about the October 7th attack. But like they're one of our outposts, basically.
So you can make the argument that it's time to vote for government shutdown, especially when it relates to ICE. The Democrats were doing quite well in the previous shutdown before they caved, and I think it's time to use those tools to leverage the Trump administration instead of voting to give him money to do what he wants.
Yeah, they gum up, gum up the works. This isn't working for anybody. It might as well just not work. And
This is not a normal situation.
yeah, and again, they talk about bipartisanship. I don't know. Being bipartisan with fascists, it don't work out for nobody.
Exactly.
I don't know why they think it's going to work out for them, but I guess everybody thinks they're special. So yeah, and this bill also has the ICE funding, right?
Yes.
So now ICE will be more funded than the Marines. At least they're not as effective as the Marines.
That is true. I've been watching lots of videos of them like busting their asses on the ice in Minneapolis.
Oh man, yeah.
Thinking about like it's like they're Stalingrad. Like, what is it with Nazis and invading places that are cold?
Yes, sir. Oh, and I've seen a lot of videos with them embedding themselves in the crowd secretly. So keep your eyes out, folks. There's signs. Check their foot gear. Plates underneath. Their clothing, earpieces, things along those lines. There's warning signs for when they're undercover in crowds. And do not forget about the agent provocateur. It is always the bad guys out there trying to do that stuff.
So that was a little bit of a disappointment from the
Dems.
The Dems.
A lot of Dems. A whole lot of them.
Are treating the situation like it's normal when it's not. Like, this is not just ordinary conservatism anymore.
No.
I mean, debatably, it never was. Like the conservative base has always been like rabid. But now, like, they've taken over the party.
Yeah. But remember that they are the minority. They got around 30% of all voters, which that was actually about the same number. They talk about Hamas. Hamas was voted in with about 30% of the vote in 2005. So, hey, funny that.
Yeah. And because it is never a show unless I talk about Alabama's prison system, I do have some prison and death penalty related news.
Let's hear it.
So 3 of the men who were featured heavily in the Alabama Solution documentary, that's Melvin Ray, Raoul Poole, and Kinetic Justice, they have been moved to Kilby Correctional Facility, probably as an attempt by the state to shut down their coming hunger strike and labor strike in,
I think it's February
the 8th.
And they're supposed to be in solitary from reports that have been given, correct?
Yes. So I wrote a letter to the warden of, every week I am part of a letter writing group that writes letters to various public officials and other things. And this week I wrote my letter to the warden of Kilby Correctional Facility saying that, hey, I'm paying attention to the welfare of these men, and I want them out of solitary confinement. They're being punished for reporting on Alabama's horrific prison system and for having the courage to stand up and try to do something about it.
Yeah. And I think there's a viewing of the Alabama Solutions documentary on the 4th on the Alabama Progress server. So if y'all like to join and check that out with a group of folks. But this is common This is every time the imprisoned folks try to organize a strike, they get broken up and busted up and moved around and stuff like that. So it's very hard for them to, can you imagine? Can you imagine being in a prison and trying to organize? Like, it's hard enough out here doing it, but so hats off to them.
Absolutely. The Free Alabama movement, follow them on social media, pay attention to what they're doing. They're doing tremendous work in the state and have been for more than a decade now. And yeah, I love to see the prisoners rising up against the horrific conditions in Alabama prisons, and they need our support and our solidarity.
That's right. Yeah.
So, go ahead.
I was going to say, we got anything else justice related?
One thing, so there is an execution pending for a wheelchair-bound individual named Charles Sonny Burton. He goes by Sonny, 75 years old, suffers from a number of health conditions which have led him to be confined to a wheelchair. Doctors and other advocates are saying that if he's executed, the chances of a botched execution are high because of the large number of health problems that he has. And the thing is that he was given the death penalty because he was an accessory to a crime where someone else was the shooter. So he himself was the shooter and was not the shooter, was not even in the building where the shooting took place, but was participating. I guess you don't have to say allegedly when they're convicted, but I don't know if he maintains his innocence or not. So, and the actual shooter in the case received a life sentence instead of death penalty. So they gave the actual shooter life, and they're trying to give someone who participated in the crime death. So
It's just not. That's an abomination,
And they're saying, I mean, at 75 years old, he would be among the oldest individuals Alabama has ever attempted to execute.
So what date is this supposed to be set on?
I don't know. I'm looking at the article now. The article doesn't say.
Well, there is a possible reprieve, correct? If we
contact the governor.
Yeah.
Yeah, contact the governor. There was a similar case in Oklahoma where the Oklahoma governor did the right thing and commuted the death penalty for the individual involved. So, like, where they were going to execute a non-shooter when the actual shooter got life imprisonment instead.
I mean, geez, we're already 75.
Right. He's not a threat to anybody. He's confined to a wheelchair. He is 75 and plagued with a number of medical problems. So he didn't personally kill anybody. He didn't intend to kill anybody. He participated in a crime in which somebody else went into a building and shot someone else as part of a robbery.
Yeah.
And even the daughter of the victim has publicly opposed Mr. Burton's execution.
Well, we'll be keeping an eye on that as things move forward, and there's several projects out there and people that work on this death penalty stuff, and there's a lot, like we just mentioned, the Alabama Solution. Malcolm Gladwell actually did a podcast series on the death penalty in Alabama as well. That's a good listen. Actually
I'll
saw
check
him.
it out.
Yeah, I actually saw him come out basically apologize for a lot of the mistakes he's made in his like writing and stuff like that. So
Being
that
a
was,
lib, a centrist lib,
huh?
for being a centrist lib.
Yeah,
Say he was sorry.
yeah. Hey, we'll take people evolving. The sooner the better. But yeah.
So I
But
think those are the highlights for Alabama politics this week. I mean, there's always a lot of other things going on. There's some stuff about Dr. Oz praising robots doing OBGYN checks instead of having real OBGYNs. And other people have pointed out that the robots are not a heartwarming innovation story, that they're actually a symptom of a lack of OBGYN doctors in the state, largely caused by our horrific anti-abortion laws.
well, that's you. Funny you mentioned that. And I think I mentioned it at the beginning. The rural healthcare initiative stuff mentions robots for folks giving birth. So, hey, all right,
Dystopian.
right in line with Dr. Oz.
Yeah, I don't want to be. I don't want to. I mean, I don't have children, and I'm never going to have children. But I wouldn't want them brought into this world by a clanker.
Oh man, cogsuckers. Long live the
So,
Butlerian Jihad.
yeah, I am a proud Butlerian Mujahideen. Or Mujahid. Mujahideen is plural. I'm sorry.
Well, that'll be both of us then.
Yeah. So yeah. Those are the things that I have for the state of the news. So I guess there's quite a bit of homework if you're looking for something to do over the course of this week. You can contact your state senator and state house member and tell them that you're paying attention to the SNAP benefits issue, and also that you don't want HB 23, the Don't Say Gay bill passed. You can contact the warden of Kilby Correctional Facility and respectfully tell them to let the Free Alabama Movement members out of solitary confinement and that you're paying attention to their welfare. And you can contact Governor Kay Ivey and ask her not to execute Sonny Burton.
All right. And there's a lot of events going on all through the state all the time. Like I said, the 20th, the women's 20 for 20. Also, shout out Extra Bullet showing up in the chat. Check out his channel, Uncle Warren. Thank you for sliding on in. And there's on the 23rd, check out what's happening in Minnesota. On the 22nd, there's the Huntsville City Council meeting where we're working to try to get them to non-cooperate agreement with ICE. I'm not saying that right. Y'all know what I'm saying. Y'all know what I mean. And there's many other events coming up. Trying to get a May Day event together. DSA is in support of labor. That's clearly in May, but we try to work ahead. There's a lot of trainings out there. You join DSA, we'll get you trained up, get you in the movement, get you working in whatever committee you want. We got the labor committee, the new electoral committee, which I'm now a co-chair of. Wasn't expecting that. And we've got our protest and rally committee. We've got our social justice committee, and we got our growth and development committee. And there's also the Alabama Progress server. Join that, get a little taste of what's going on. There's folk wherever you're at in the state, there's folks there. And, there's DSA chapters popping up all over the state. Montgomery, there's Birmingham's well established down in Mobile. Trying to work with some folks out in the Shoals Florence area to get going. So, yeah, there's a lot going on, folks, and it's up to us to get it going. And it's going to require some sacrifice, and it's going to require some of your time. And
And bravery. It's going to require a bit of bravery.
Yeah.
And, you know, remember the example of Claudette Colvin, who passed away this week, where she was 15 years old and did something that got her arrested. And that arrest was not expunged from her record until 2021. So this is the time to be brave. It's time to get out of your comfort zone a little bit. Everybody, nobody wants to be in a fight. Like it's bad to be in a fight, but if somebody walks up and punches you in the face, you're in a fight, and you only have a couple of options.
Yeah.
So, and unfortunately, this is not really a fight that we can run away from.
Now is the time of monsters. A new world yearns to
But
be born.
if you think that you can keep your head down and your mouth shut and get left alone, I think again.
They're coming
They
after
will-
all of us, folks.
Yeah, they will find their way to you eventually.
Well, on that little positive
Cheery note. On that cheery note,
we got anything else?
that was largely it. It was a busy week for the state, and it was a busy week for the news to try to keep track of. But I think I hit the highlights of everything I wanted to hit, and yeah.
Dankeschön, Herr Director. So yeah, folks, we appreciate your time. We know it is precious. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Check out Robert Hunter's campaign in the show notes down there. Also, we got a working class policy survey out there. Spread that around. We're trying to get as much data as possible about what's important to working class folks. And yeah, keep your head on a swivel and keep care of each other. As we like to say around here, all the power to all the people. We, the people, break our chains together. Solidarity forever, folks.
Solidarity forever.